Vlad, if Roc Nation just pressed you, you could say that too. If you got the call from Roc Nation,
have you ever shot a gun before?
Of course.
Okay. Have you ever dropped a gun on the ground and it fired twice?
I have not.
Can you imagine any situation with a gun where you drop it on the ground and it fires 2 times?
Okay.
There are moments in this industry where someone says something, just puts it out there raw and unfiltered in front of the whole internet, and the room goes completely still. Not because people don't believe it, but because people believe it a little too easily, because it fits, because it maps onto everything they've already been watching for years, and the only thing that surprises them is that someone finally said it out loud. That's what happened when DJ Vlad posted those tweets. In the middle of an otherwise normal news cycle, when the internet was already buzzing about Jay-Z's name appearing in the Epstein files, when the Tory Lanez case was still a raw nerve for a massive portion of the culture, when people had been watching the Roc Nation machine operate with a level of impunity that had been making people uncomfortable for years, Vlad TV's founder sat down and typed out one of the most incendiary threads the gossip world had seen in a long time. And the reason it detonated the way it did wasn't the content alone, it was the source.
Down outside, Vlad's calling me. Hey Vlad, what's going on?
Yeah, what's good?
How you doing, man? I'm on stream right now, is it okay?
Sure, why not?
Okay, so I saw your tweets about Jay-Z and Roc Nation. Is everything okay? Are you in a safe spot?
Man, people just do not know sarcasm, do they? Sarcasm really just goes over people's heads. It really surprises me.
Okay. This wasn't a broke blogger fishing for clicks. This wasn't an anonymous blind item on some forum. This was DJ Vlad, a man who has spent over 2 decades building one of the most credible interview platforms in hip-hop.
Okay, so what's the purpose of this? Is it
Jay did a verse on the Judge's Grandson's album? Like,
okay.
How is this not obvious?
Yeah, the timing is strange because now he's getting revealed in the Epstein files, so I'm sure especially a lot of people do see how Tory Lanez is innocent.
I guess, man. Do they really? I mean, he was convicted by 12 jurors. His appeal has been denied.
Talk to you. You think that Megan Fox is the one? You think that he shot her in the foot?
Megan Stallion? He said Megan Fox.
Oh yeah, I was thinking about. So
he shot her too?
No. Okay, so
a man who has sat across from everyone, who has had the kind of industry access that takes years to cultivate and seconds to destroy if you say the wrong thing about the wrong person. A man who, by posting what he posted, had everything to lose and did it anyway. Or so it seemed. The tweets came out rapid fire.
Yeah, man. Look, at the end of the day, we don't exactly know what happened, but, when you shoot a woman and she's willing to take the stand and say that person shot me, that is very hard to get over, And if he really didn't shoot her, then he should have taken the stand and said that. And, just all the pieces, and he's talking to Kelsey over the jail phone and he's apologizing to her and she's the shooter. How you gonna be in jail and apologize to the person who put you there?
Roc Nation had been paying Vlad to support Megan Thee Stallion's narrative. They paid off every jury member who convicted Tory Lanez. They bribed the judge. Jay-Z personally paid the Mexican man who stabbed Tory in prison. The 3 Supreme Court justices who denied Tory's appeal bought. Jay-Z even paid Trump not to pardon Tory, because even though a presidential pardon doesn't apply to state cases, Jay-Z wasn't taking chances with someone who liked to bend rules.
Well, obviously, maybe they forced his hand, but I did see his bodyguard, his security. His security just went public and said the opposite of what the mainstream narrative is.
No, not his security. Kelsey's security, who was not her security the night of the actual incident. That was her security during the trial, and he said that he overheard her saying that. That's the story. And that story is from May of last year.
The LA police were on Roc Nation's payroll. And that was just the part Vlad was willing to say publicly. The rest, he suggested, people weren't ready to hear yet. And then the line that stopped everything cold. Every blogger is on Jay-Z's payroll. We all got paid in Bitcoin. Now the price dropped. You'll see a lot of us turning on him.
And that appeal that they tried to file was denied.
What about the forensic evidence where it said that she stepped on glass? That's what the original doctor's report was, correct?
She said that she stepped on glass originally because she said that she didn't want to see everyone arrested. But then when she went to the hospital, to the doctor, the actual doctor took the stand and said there was bullet fragments. And he pulled those out. And then at first he said she wasn't shot, but then when they filed the appeal, he said that Kelsey was a shooter and he hit her arm and the gun fell to the ground and fired 2 more times.
He ended it with something even heavier. I can't keep these lies secret anymore. If this is my last tweet, you know who silenced me. The internet did not sleep that night. Conspiracy Twitter went into full overdrive. People who had been quietly building cases about Roc Nation's influence for years suddenly had what felt like confirmation from the most credible insider voice imaginable.
I'm asking you, as someone who shoots guns, can you imagine that situation happen under any sort of physical condition? His lawyers actually said this in a press conference.
Okay, I mean, she lied on Megan Thee Stallion. She lied on
That's how she got shot.
on Gayle King. She said that she never had a relationship with him that was sexual, and then later she did.
Absolutely, she lied about that. But she was not taking the stand. You know, at the end of the day, you could lie in interviews, but when you take the stand, it's a very different story.
Jay-Z's name was already in motion because of the Epstein file exposure. That slow, grinding revelation that had been making powerful people sweat for months. And now, here was Vlad, one of the most connected men in hip-hop media, appearing to crack open the entire operation from the inside. The Tory Lanez angle hit especially hard, because that case had never fully settled in the public consciousness the way a conviction usually does. The jury convicted. The appeals were denied. The law said what it said. But a stubborn, vocal portion of the culture never accepted the official version of events. They kept pointing at inconsistencies, at witness credibility issues, at the specific dynamic between Tory, Megan, and the Roc Nation infrastructure that had publicly backed her throughout the trial. And now Vlad was appearing to validate every single one of those suspicions simultaneously. He didn't stop at the jury. He said the judge was paid. He said the doctor who testified about bullet fragments was paid to lie. That Megan was never shot at all. He named the stabbing in prison as a Roc Nation hit. He put Jay-Z's reach into federal territory, into the Supreme Court, into the White House. He made the machine sound total, omnipresent, unstoppable. And the specific detail about Bitcoin, about the entire blogger ecosystem being on a crypto payroll that had now devalued enough to break people's loyalty, that detail landed differently than everything else. Because it wasn't abstract, it named a mechanism. It described how a media operation gets quietly funded and quietly controlled without leaving the kind of paper trail that shows up in a traditional financial investigation. It made the whole thing feel engineered rather than imagined. For roughly 12 hours, those tweets existed in the world, and the world processed them as potentially real. People shared them. News channels covered them. Fans who had spent years frustrated by what they saw as industry protection of Jay-Z at the expense of artists who challenged him felt something shift, like the dam had finally broken. And then Vlad called it sarcasm. He got on the phone, live, with a streamer who reached out after the tweets started spreading, and he was calm, almost amused. He said the tweets were a troll. He pointed to one specific detail, that Jay-Z had apparently done a verse on a judge's grandson's album, and asked how that wasn't obviously absurd. He said the sarcasm was right there on the surface and people just couldn't read it. He laughed a little. He didn't apologize. He moved on. But the internet had already seen too much to simply move on with him. Because there's sarcasm that reads like sarcasm, and there's sarcasm that reads exactly like the truth said with a thin layer of deniability applied after the fact. And what Vlad posted read like the second kind. Every single element of those tweets tracked against documented reality closely enough to be believed. The Roc Nation media relationships are documented. The power Jay-Z wields over industry narratives is documented. The Tory Lanez case had genuine inconsistencies that legitimate legal observers flagged. The Epstein file exposure was already putting Jay-Z's name in uncomfortable places. He didn't invent a fantasy. He amplified a structure that already existed and said it out loud in a way that gave it the most explosive possible framing. That's not what pure trolling looks like. Trolling works by being absurd. Those tweets worked by being just plausible enough. And the line between confession wrapped in sarcasm and genuine sarcasm is exactly the line that powerful people rely on when they want to say something true without being held to it. Then Vlad went further. Even after calling it a troll, even after laughing about the judge's grandson's album, he kept talking. He got into the actual Tory Lanez case with the kind of specificity that had nothing to do with trolling. He started raising real questions about forensic evidence, about witness credibility, about Kelsey Nicole's timeline, about what it means that Tory was on a jail call apparently apologizing to the person his defense team later named as the actual shooter, about whether a gun dropped on the ground can realistically discharge twice. These aren't the questions of someone who was just joking around. These are the questions of someone who has an actual position, who has thought carefully about the case, who has doubts he was testing the temperature on before committing to saying directly. The tweets weren't disconnected from the real-world conversation. They were pointed directly at it. So the real question isn't whether the specific claims were literal. The real question is what Vlad was actually doing when he posted them, and why a man with his access, his credibility, and his platform would choose to light that particular match at that particular moment. That question has layers, and the deeper you go into them, the more the "it was just a joke" explanation starts to fall apart. Vlad has a complicated history with Jay-Z's orbit. He has interviewed artists on both sides of Roc Nation beef. He has navigated the politics of hip-hop's most powerful infrastructure with enough skill to stay relevant for over 20 years. He knows exactly where the lines are. He knows which names generate callbacks and which ones generate silence. And he knows that in the current climate, with Diddy's fall reshaping the public's appetite for accountability, with Jay-Z's name already circulating in uncomfortable contexts, with the entire media ecosystem around hip-hop being quietly re-examined, a tweet thread like that one lands differently than it would have even 18 months ago. The timing was not accidental. The content was not random. And the walkback, when it came, was too smooth and too quick to have been the genuine response of someone who was surprised by how seriously people took it. Vlad knew exactly what he was doing. The question is why he did it. One answer is simpler than any of the theories the internet built overnight. Vlad has been pushing back against the mainstream Tory Lanez narrative for a long time. He has questions about that case that he hasn't been able to ask directly without consequences, because asking them directly means challenging a verdict, challenging Megan, and by extension challenging the entire media and industry infrastructure that backed her, infrastructure with significant Roc Nation adjacency. The tweet thread was a way to say everything he actually thinks while maintaining the escape hatch of calling it fiction. That's not cowardice. That's the kind of careful navigation that people who survive in industries controlled by powerful interests learn to do. You say the thing. You see how it lands. You watch who responds, how fast, and with what energy. And then you decide, based on those responses, how deep you actually want to go. What responded to Vlad's tweets wasn't just the public, it was the industry. And the nature and speed of that response told Vlad, and everyone watching, something important about exactly how close to something real those jokes had gotten. Because jokes don't generate the kind of attention those tweets generated unless they're pointed at something true. And the truth they were pointed at, about Roc Nation's media influence, about the money that flows through hip-hop's information ecosystem, about Jay-Z's documented history of using institutional power to shape narratives, is a truth that has been visible for years to anyone willing to look directly at it. The Bitcoin detail in particular deserves more attention than it got in the scramble to call the whole thread a troll. Because the suggestion that media figures were compensated in cryptocurrency, a payment method specifically chosen for its difficulty to trace, is not an invention. The practice of brands, labels, and management companies compensating influencers, bloggers, and content creators without formal disclosure has been an open secret in entertainment media for years. The method evolves with the technology. What used to be cash, gift cards, and access passes became wire transfers, became Venmo, became crypto. And the reason it keeps evolving is because the people who benefit from it keep needing new ways to make the exchange untraceable. Vlad naming that specific mechanism, even as a joke, was him describing a real system, one that he has almost certainly operated inside of at some level, over a career as long and connected as his, which is what made the sarcasm defense feel thin to the people who were paying attention. Because you can't troll with details that specific about a system that actually exists. The details don't come from imagination. They come from proximity. And proximity is exactly what Vlad has. He has been inside that world for long enough that the things he said, even framed as jokes, contain the skeleton of something real. The structure is accurate even if the specific claims are exaggerated. The mechanism is real even if the names are inflated. And that gap between what he said and what he actually knows is the most interesting territory in this entire story. Because if he knows more than he put in those tweets, and the evidence strongly suggests he does, then what he released wasn't a troll. It was a temperature check. He was measuring the room, watching who flinched, watching what the machine did in response to seeing its outline described in public, and using everything he observed in those 12 hours to decide what, if anything, he was going to do next. The response from Jay-Z's camp was silence, official silence, no statement, no legal threat posted publicly, no spokesperson offering a rebuttal. The Roc Nation machinery, which has demonstrated on many occasions that it knows exactly how to respond to threats against its image, let those tweets breathe for 12 hours before the sarcasm narrative absorbed them. That silence, that specific managed 12-hour window, is its own kind of answer. And the conversation that followed, even after Vlad called it a troll, didn't die the way a pure joke story dies. It lingered. It kept getting shared. People kept coming back to the specific details and asking the question that the sarcasm label was supposed to prevent. What if he meant it? The Epstein connection made that question impossible to dismiss, because Jay-Z's name appearing in those files, however tangentially, however much his team worked to contextualize it, had already cracked something in the public's willingness to extend the default benefit of the doubt that celebrity power usually generates. People who had previously accepted the Carter image as impenetrable started holding it up to the light differently. And Vlad's tweets, arriving in the middle of that shift, gave form to suspicions that had previously lived in fan forums and anonymous posts. The conversation Vlad started is not over. It didn't end when he laughed on that phone call. It didn't end when the sarcasm framing temporarily absorbed the news cycle's attention. It went underground, where conversations like this always go when the people involved are too powerful for the mainstream to hold them. And it's still moving. What Vlad did was open a door. Whether he opened it intentionally, strategically, or by accident is almost beside the point now. Because doors, once open, don't close cleanly just because the person who opened them decides they were joking. The questions that walked through that opening, about Roc Nation's media influence, about the Tory Lanez case, about Jay-Z's reach into the system supposed to operate independently of his money. Those questions are inside the room now. And the room has a lot of people in it who are very interested in finding out where they lead. Think about what it means that a man with Vlad's credibility and access chose that specific moment. Jay-Z freshly named in Epstein files, the Diddy fallout reshaping the industry's power map, the Tory Lanez conviction still contested in a significant portion of the culture, to post something that read exactly like an insider confession. He didn't pick a quiet week. He didn't bury it in a long interview where it could be lost in context. He put it on Twitter, point by point, in a format designed for maximum spread, and watched it go everywhere in real time. That's not the behavior of someone who accidentally said too much. That's the behavior of someone who said exactly as much as they intended to. The Tory Lanez case is the thread that connects all of this most visibly. Because Vlad, even after pulling back the conspiracy framing, didn't pull back his actual doubts about the conviction. He kept pushing. He raised the forensic questions himself, on camera, in the same conversation where he called the tweets a joke. He asked about the gun discharge. He acknowledged Kelsey's credibility issues. He pointed at the jail call as evidence that something about the accepted narrative didn't add up. These are not the observations of someone who thinks Tory is guilty and was trolling people who think otherwise. These are the observations of someone who has looked at the evidence, has doubts, and found a creative way to express those doubts at maximum volume before retreating to the safety of irony. The question for everyone watching is, what happens next? Because Vlad is still there. He still has the platform. He still has the access. He still has whatever he actually knows, sitting behind the jokes and the temperature checks and the careful navigation of an industry that punishes people who say the wrong thing about the wrong names. And the environment he's operating in right now is not the same environment that protected those names 5 years ago. The Diddy situation changed the calculus for everyone. The Epstein exposure changed it further. The public's appetite for accountability from powerful men in entertainment, men who use their institutional reach to shape narratives, control outcomes, and insulate themselves from consequences, is higher than it has ever been in the social media era. Vlad knows that. He reads the room for a living. And the room, right now, would receive a lot of things differently than it would have before. And that shift matters more than people are giving it credit for. Because the Diddy collapse didn't just take down one man. It took down the idea that the entertainment industry's internal code of silence was permanent. It proved that the ecosystem of protection, the mutual interest in keeping certain things quiet, the informal agreements between powerful figures about what gets reported and what gets buried, has a breaking point. And once people watched that machine fail in real time, they started looking at every other powerful figure in that world and asking the same question. What else is being held together by the same kind of arrangement? Jay-Z's name entered that conversation because it was already adjacent to Diddy's world in documented, visible ways. They moved in the same circles. They attended the same events. And in the post-Diddy environment, simply having been present in those spaces, having been photographed there, having been friendly with someone whose entire operation turned out to be something catastrophically different from what the public was shown, is enough to make people ask harder questions than they would have before. Not because proximity is proof of anything, but because proximity, in a world where the people closest to Diddy claim not to know, stopped being a neutral fact and became a question worth answering. Vlad was in those spaces too. He has said so himself. He has described his interactions with Diddy as professional. He has drawn lines between his own presence and what others were allegedly doing in those same buildings. But the act of drawing that line, the very specific need to clarify his own role, tells you that he understands exactly how the landscape has shifted. He knows that being in the room is no longer automatically forgiven by saying you were just there for business. which is part of what makes his Jay-Z tweet thread so layered when you hold it against everything else happening in that moment. Because Vlad wasn't just talking about Tory Lanez, he was talking about the same infrastructure that the Diddy situation had just cracked open. The payoffs, the media control, the reach into systems that are supposed to be independent, courts, law enforcement, medical testimony. He was describing, in exaggerated form, the exact kind of machine that people had just watched fail spectacularly when the walls finally came down around someone who had been protected by the same mechanisms for decades. People weren't just reading those tweets as Tory Lanez conspiracy theories. They were reading them as a continuation of a story that was already in motion. And Vlad, who understood exactly what lens his audience was holding, chose that specific frame deliberately. There's something else that got lost in the noise around the sarcasm walkback. Vlad has been one of the few media figures in hip-hop who has consistently given platforms to people on the wrong side of industry power. Artists who got dropped, executives who got pushed out, people who had stories that the mainstream hip-hop press wouldn't touch because the names involved were too connected to too many ad dollars and access agreements. His platform has a specific reputation for that, for being the place where people go when nobody else will have the conversation. That reputation is both his greatest asset and the thing that makes him most dangerous when he decides to use it against someone at Jay-Z's level. Because his audience already trusts him to say things that other outlets won't. They come to Vlad specifically because they believe he has access to the real version of events, not the managed version. So when he posts something incendiary, the default reading from his core audience isn't skepticism, it's confirmation. It's the thing they suspected being said out loud by the person they trust most to say it. He built that trust over 20 years, and whether those tweets were a troll or not, he spent some of it deliberately. He made a choice about how much of his credibility to put behind that specific moment, at that specific time, pointed at those specific names. And the fact that he pulled back with the sarcasm label doesn't erase the spend. The audience that processed those tweets as real, that shared them, that built on them, that went to sleep that night with a slightly different picture of Jay-Z and Roc Nation than they woke up with. Those people don't fully unlearn what they absorb. The correction never reaches everyone the first post reached. It never does. That's how media influence actually works. Not through singular bombshells that change everything at once, but through the slow accumulation of impressions that shift how people hold information over time. Vlad knows this better than almost anyone. He has watched it operate for his entire career, and the fact that he deployed it in this direction, even under the cover of sarcasm, means something about where he actually stands, what he actually believes, and how much further he might be willing to go when the conditions are right. So here's what this all comes down to. What you witnessed with those tweets wasn't a random troll from a bored media figure. It was a calculated act by someone who knows exactly where the bodies are, exactly how the machine operates, and exactly how much he can say before it becomes too expensive to walk back. He said as much as he did because he wanted to see what would happen. He called it sarcasm because he needed the exit. And the fact that the exit was available doesn't mean the doorway wasn't real. Jay-Z's silence through all of it said more than any statement could have. Powerful people respond to things that don't matter by ignoring them completely. They respond to things that come close to something real by managing the narrative just enough to absorb the damage without engaging directly. That 12-hour window before the sarcasm explanation arrived, while the tweets were just sitting in the world, was not a window where the machine was asleep. It was a window where the machine was deciding how to respond. And the response it chose, let Vlad call it a joke. Don't add oxygen by reacting. Tells you exactly how close those jokes landed. Where this goes from here depends on Vlad, on what he's still holding, on how the environment continues to shift, on whether the temperature check he ran gave him what he was looking for or told him to wait longer. But the conversation he opened is not going back in the box. So I want to know where you stand. Do you think Vlad said exactly what he meant and used sarcasm as an exit strategy? Or do you genuinely believe he was trolling from the start and this whole thing was a misread? And what does it mean that Jay-Z, a man with every resource available to respond to a false accusation, chose silence as his weapon? Because silence in this industry is never nothing. It's always a decision. And decisions like that won't always have a reason behind them. Put your take in the comments. And if you're watching this channel because you want the conversations that actually go somewhere, hit subscribe. Because we are nowhere near done pulling this thread.